I was hired to coach this driver for Racing Prodigy's sim-to-real competition on iRacing. After just a few minutes, we were able to identify where he could improve and ultimately how he could go faster. Watch until the end to see if any of these tips apply to your driving. Here are a few clips of the students driving before any coaching. Write in the comments what mistakes you see and edit your comment after the video to show what you learned. So there's a few things I'm noticing right off the bat. First of all, I think you're sort of struggling with finding the limit and you're not consistently getting to the limit. What I want to start with is recapping what our tools are for rotation. So the three tools we can use to rotate the car are steering, engine braking, and trail braking. And in a perfect world where we have a perfectly balanced car, we'd ideally want to be using 33.3% of each because there's three of them. So obviously using each at a balanced rate to each other. The reason why I bring that up is with finding the limit. So I'm finding your driving style is quite different in some corners compared to others. So for example, into turn one, your trail braking is quite good. It's you're dragging the brake that little 1% all the way to the apex, but then in the essentially 180 degree hairpins, left-hander, right-hander, like the third and fourth last corners on the track, you're letting go of the brake quite early, essentially not using 100% of the available grip from the tires. So another thing I noticed is exit of turn one, I believe the second last lap we did, I saw you noticed you were understeering on exit and you added more steering angle. You were almost at like 180 degrees of steering on exit. And I just wanted to get this part out of the way. When you're understeering, the worst thing you can do is add more steering. It's just gonna amplify the effects to 3x. In that case, you started rotating more of the steering as you were getting less and less and less rotation. So this comes back to the lesson in the course, the maximum rotation point. Our maximum steering angle should be right before or at our initial throttle application on exit of the corner. So typically that's going to be like right at the apex basically, and then everything after that is unwinding the wheel. Now I know there's points where you got on the throttle too early or whatever the case may be, carry too much speed mid-corner that caused you to understeer on exit, but I just want to say that adding more steering angle is the worst thing you can do because it's just amplifying the understeer. So in a case like that, just lift off the throttle. That's your best hope at keeping it on track and not abusing the surface temperature of the front tires, because if you think about it, you're going, I don't know, maybe 60 miles an hour on exit of that corner and your wheel is turned 180 degrees. Your front tires are essentially just sliding over the they're literally just sliding across the track. So it's creating so much excess pressure on the surface of the tire. So when you go into turns 2 and 3, the surface of the front tires are extremely overheated, so you don't have as much bite on turn-in, and then it's just a snowball effect throughout the lap because the only point on this track where they get to cool down is the front straight, and even then it's tough to get them cooled down. So this is a big factor in racing because obviously you're going to be driving in high SOF splits. Making these mistakes and having snowball effects is not ideal when you want to get as many points as possible. So going back to finding the limit. In this car, I know I said earlier in a perfectly balanced car, we want to be using 33% of the steering, 33% braking, trail braking, and 33% engine braking to rotate the car. But because the MX5 is naturally just an incredibly oversteered car, just essentially the way the tire model works, the steering plays much less of a role in this car. The way I like to describe it is, in the MX5, this is the way you should be approaching a corner. The only reason you're turning the wheel is to tell the car which direction the corner is in. Exactly. So the car is blind, right? It doesn't have eyes. It doesn't know which way a corner is going. So, like I was saying, the steering, you're essentially just pointing the car in the direction it needs to go, and it's really not working all that hard the rest of the corner, because I'm sure you've seen, I don't know if you're in the academy or if you've done the league races, but if you've watched Kane's laps, Kane is pointing the car initially, and his wheel is basically straight throughout the entire corner. Another powerful thing in this car is the engine braking. For reference sake, let's say 50% of our rotation in this car is caused by engine braking. There were a couple instances in that last stint you were getting understeer and oversteer due to your lack or abuse of engine braking. So let's start being more theoretical about our approach to engine braking. I noticed into the final corner a couple times you got pretty loose, and that was exactly on that downshift, that last downshift. Let's just focus on essentially experimenting with engine braking. Let's just do that. Let's try abusing the engine braking, getting into a little bit of a slide, and then let's try engine braking, essentially shifting super slow, and see how it causes the car to understeer. I want you, after maybe 2 or 3 laps, to start trying to find a middle ground in there that allows for that neutral steer. That's exactly what we're looking for in this car. Your wheel throughout the corner should be very close to 0%, because the engine braking and the trail braking are doing all the rotation for you, not the steering. Okay, so we gained time on entry there. So still braking at the same points as you normally do, just downshifting earlier, that's it. Whoa, okay.
Too much.
Alright, no, here, okay, let's stop there. So, there's so much potential here, and it's a lot of it has to do with the engine braking. Like, you're gaining a 1/10 or 2 on entry of every big braking zone like that just because of the engine braking. Like, it's there, we just have to unlock it. So I think the problem with turn 1 is you're sort of, and some other corners actually, you're sort of like turning as you're initially braking. So I think what I want to talk about here is we need to separate our braking and our steering just a little bit. Right now you're sort of throwing the car in as you're first starting to hit the brakes. What I want to see here is braking in a straight line and just keeping the wheel straight for slightly longer, and as we get to that peak pressure, and just as we're about to start trail braking, that's when I want to see you put some steering angle in instead of turning as you're initially braking. So just keep it straight for a little bit longer.
So almost like then a turn.
Not that exaggerated, somewhere in the middle though. And I
know things happen like in a millisecond, so
exactly. And I still want you to be downshifting fast like you were before, because we're going to gain time doing that, guaranteed.
I feel like that part was better.
Yes,
Right
a lot better. So again here, slightly smoother and slightly later on the turn-in, still fast downshifting. Whoa, okay. It's there, man. It's there. Okay, keep trying. I want you to figure this out.
A lot better. A lot better.
Half a 1/10 there, too.
And that's what I like to see. Like, I'm gaining time just by that straightaway. Does make a huge difference.
100% it does. Look at this, like you're gaining almost
I'm
everywhere.
like, okay.
Yeah, it's just about putting it together now. Like, it feels super weird at first. It's gonna take a while.
See, this was like,
yeah, dude, we're almost gaining a 1/10.
Literally, I just went out a little bit, but look how much time I'm gaining just on that straightaway. Insane.
It's the doctor. Wow.
Okay, better. Much better. Yes. Good, man. Nice.
Man, I feel like a whole new man. Yeah. Like I'm like, holy shit, like this is
Yes. Here we go. Alright, now you got the hang of it. Put it all together. If you ever feel like it's over-rotating at the apex consistently, just do that last downshift just a little bit later. It's really, this car literally is just about playing around with the downshifting. Alright, I'll get you to stop here for now. Obviously a huge improvement, Sarah. Just that, so that left-hand hairpin there, that's going to take some time to mess around with the timing of the second or the last downshift, just because first it's such a short gear, it really wants to kick the back end out. And you might want to think about maybe you're not gaining as much time by doing the second downshift later. Maybe you're not gaining as much time compared to doing both downshifts fast, but we also have to think about the tire surface temperature for the next right-hander, because there's literally no time for the tires to cool down in between those two corners. So yeah, you might not be gaining a full tenth compared to the start of this session. You might only be gaining 700ths in that corner compared to where we started, but you might be gaining 0.5 back on the or 500, sorry, back on the right hander after, and then that nets you 200ths there. So just play around, yeah, with the downshifting on that first left hander, because yeah, tire temperature is very important in this car, especially in longer races towards the end. The tires get really worn out, especially the rears, because of all the sliding we're inducing. Anyways, one more main thing I want to talk about. So we have the engine braking technique down, or at least you're aware of it, and we know we can go a lot faster with this technique. The problem that you're causing yourself right now is actually your vision. Not a lot of people talk about this, or at least not enough, but I think it's super important. Honestly, I just to simplify this as much as possible, I don't think you have accurate enough references, and I don't think you're looking far enough ahead. It goes a bit deeper than that, but
yeah.
If you had to take 2 points away, that's what it is. First of all, I know now that we're engine braking differently and more aggressively, our braking points naturally are going to change. You're probably going to be able to brake slightly later as well, because the engine braking is slowing down the car and rotating it. But in general, we need to be super precise with our reference markers, especially over the course of a long stint or long race. Because if you think about it, if you have really accurate references, and let's say the session is really hot and your tires fall off towards the end of the race, if we have a super precise reference marker from the start of the session or from our practice, we're able to precisely dial it back for when situations change on track. That's just one of the benefits, but also, yeah, just general consistency. This is an exceptionally tough track to have references on in that middle sector, so it's using everything available to you. So if there's tire marks on the ground, use those. If there's things that line up with the inside of the car, what I like to do when learning a new track is literally do like 3 laps, just going like absolute snail pace and just identifying all of the possible references. So looking at all the tire marks on the ground, if any of them stand out where I would be braking, that's what I would be looking for. Some examples, like for example, turn 2 and 3 at Road Atlanta. It's a notoriously hard corner for references, so I would be using the trees in the background. There's lots of trees here. They're not super close to the track, so it might be more difficult, but that's just an example when you go to different tracks, because I'm trying to make you faster for the entire season of MX5, not just this track. Yeah, that's going to help your consistency a lot, just in general, being super precise with our markers. I can't stand when people say I'm braking, like I get this all the time. People say I'm braking somewhere in between the 2 and the 3 board. Like, that's terrible. You need to be way more accurate than that, because somewhere in the 2 and the 3 could be a 2.2 or it could be the 2.9. Like, it's just not accurate enough. And especially when you're racing in the heat of the moment, these things can appear differently when you sort of have that tunnel vision. So the way I like to think about it is literally impossible to make a mistake if you have proper references, because coming out of the previous corner, you're coming out with the same exit speed because you were getting on the throttle at the same point, because you braked at the same point, and then going into the next corner, you're coming in at the same entry speed because of the result of the previous corner. You're going to be braking at the exact same point because you have a precise marker. That's going to give you the perfect mid-corner speed. That's going to give you the perfect time to get on throttle, because we're going to have a throttle reference as well, mostly due to good vision. Literally everything here is a consequence of what you've done before. So it's impossible to make a mistake if you have accurate references, if you've done everything correctly in the previous corner. Obviously, when I say impossible, it's not 100% true. Like, there's mistakes can be made. You maybe inputted 10% less brake pressure, but it's besides the point. You're just going to be more consistent, period. So yeah, if you had to come out with this with 3 things, it would be to keep playing with that engine braking. I mean, downshifting faster. It would be to really focus on your vision, setting proper reference points, and making sure you're always 2 steps ahead. So what I mean by this is coming down the straight here on the exit of the final corner, I'm already hunting for my reference point. I'm eyeing it down, and maybe when I'm like 50 feet away from the reference, I'm already shifting my view to the apex. So because I'm looking at my reference so early on and kind of tracking it for a little bit, my peripheral vision is going to take care of the rest. I have that sense of speed, so I know exactly when I'm going to be getting to that reference point, and right before I get to that reference point, I'm already shifting my vision to the apex. Because you're shifting your vision to the apex, you're then going to have a better sense of speed mid-corner coming up to the apex, and you're going to be able to adjust your braking if need be. And then right before you get to the apex, I'm already shifting my vision to exit. So in a case like yours, when I talked about the start of the session, understeering off track into turn 1, that's a direct consequence of your vision mid-corner. You weren't looking at the apex early enough, because if you were looking at the exit early enough, sorry, I said apex. If you were looking at the exit early enough, you would have known you weren't able to get on the throttle that early, or you would have known that you would have had to lift off the throttle earlier.